Welcome to 5 and 5 from One Stop Co-op Shop, where we discuss 5 key design decisions about a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today we're looking at Maximum Apocalypse from Rock Manor Games. I received this game and Set a Watch at the same time, and was really excited to give this a try since Steve and Elijah gave it a pretty high recommendation on their podcast episode. So out of the 2 Rock Manor games that I've played recently, which one comes out on top, Set a Watch or Maximum Apocalypse? Let's find out and get to the list. We're going to start out with a negative, and that's the card balance on just a few cards in the game. That's why it's number 5, even though it is a concern. My 2 main examples of this are the walkie-talkie scavenge card and the mortar and pestle that the doctor has. One lets you spend 1 action to give another character 2 actions as many times as you want, which both encourages you to skip your entire turn and also totally destroys the action economy of the game. The other one allows you to lower somebody's hunger level by 1 for an action. You can do that over and over again, which takes away the tension of starving. In both cases, and with a few other cards in the game, it just seems like it maybe wasn't tested enough and really takes away some of the fun tension in the game. Next is another con, and that's the variety in the enemies you can face in the game. Now, one reason I was really excited to play Maximum Apocalypse is that I love modular deck games like Sentinels of the Multiverse, Street Masters, and one of the big selling points of those games is that you have these really unique decks that interact in interesting ways. Maximum Apocalypse seems to fit the bill with 4 unique enemy decks in the base set. However, what you'll quickly find is that the enemies generally play the same. Yes, they have different statistics, and they might have slightly different abilities when they come in or when they attack you each turn, but in the end, they simply feel too samey, and with me being excited about the variety and trying out different combinations, it just isn't really there, at least in the base game. But speaking of different decks, I was a big fan of the character decks and how different they were in the game. I will say this is my number 3 because I don't think the characters are as varied as you might find in some other games in this type of system. But they are still really fun. They each have their own tricks to pull off, their own little combos to play. You have characters like the mechanic who sends drones striking all over the board, the veteran and his dog who have to find twice as much food to survive, and the hunter who shoots exploding arrows into everybody's face. Just check my playthrough. They're cool, thematic, and generally just a lot of fun. And speaking of actions, that leads right into my number 2, which is also a big pro, and that's the tense action system in the game. Each character gets 4 actions per turn, and man, are there a lot of things fighting for those limited resources. You have great cards to play from your hand to set up cool combos for your character. You have enemies spawning all over you and you want to hit them so they don't do too much damage. You have to scavenge for food so you don't starve, scavenge for fuel so you can get away. All in all, it feels like every turn has a lot of great decisions to be made, and especially a lot of them are cooperative because a lot of abilities allow you to influence other players, help them, shoot enemies that are on them. But sadly, that great gameplay doesn't make up for my biggest complaint with the game, and that's the fragility and randomness in the scenarios and the gameplay overall. Generally speaking, scenarios in the game fall into one of 2 categories. You're either trying to find a location with an objective or trying to go through the scavenge deck to find certain cards. But in most cases, all these things are just randomly shuffled together. The location you need might literally be 1 space away from your starting space. Similarly, any items you need could be on the top of their scavenge decks or on the bottom. It makes gameplay very hard to predict. A scenario could be very difficult or very easy, could take 20 minutes or 2 hours based on the random elements of how things come out. Add on to this that enemy spawning is very random, so sometimes you'll have a ton of enemies, sometimes almost none at all. And for a final complaint on this point, setting up the game takes a lot longer than it should for a quick, simple play experience. Overall, I think there is a good game hiding somewhere in Maximum Apocalypse, but I did find the base set of the game to be a bit of a letdown on repeated plays. I think this is the kind of game that could be pretty great with expansions and house rules, but I have to review what I was sent, and for the base experience here, I think there's too many flaws to enjoy this game consistently. It takes too long to set up for what should be a simple game, it sometimes takes too long to play, and you're really not sure how varied the difficulty is going to be. Now, if you don't mind a lot of randomness and you're the kind of player who wants to just kind of dig into a world and maybe have the game last long or short, I think this could be really fun for you, especially if you're willing to house rule some of the wonkier parts of the design. Good gaming, everyone, and I'll see you at the next stop.